Hello everyone, and welcome to the Game Design Archive with Edward and Ludwig. I'm Ludwig, and as always, I'm here with Edward. Hello, Edward.
Hello.
Today, we are going to discuss story games and why they are good, actually. So, go ahead, Edward. You have the honor
What an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Who suggested that? Well, a shout out to one of our viewers, Blue Sign R. He suggested this topic in one of our earlier videos. So thanks for that. Also, if any of you have any other topics that you want us to discuss, feel free to leave them in the comments.
Yes.
Yeah. We're gonna...
We might not always...
What are you gonna say?
Yeah, sorry, we might not always do it, because it depends on like if we have anything interesting to say about it,
Yeah.
because we have had suggestions before where we're like, we don't know, we're not experienced enough, but like, put suggestions in there, we'll
I mean, it's still worth putting it there. It's not like we're, oh, that's dumb. It's not like that. It's like, well, like, we're not, maybe it's not...
It's our skill issue if we don't talk about
it's
it.
Our skill
it's not
issue,
your
basically.
skill issue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also, I mean, sure, we can probably come up with topics, but maybe you guys have more interesting topics than we do, because, I mean, you know, Yeah, so let's get going. Stories, yeah. So we are gonna start out with one thing that we think are not that good, right? Like I should rephrase that. We want to clarify what we mean, because there's a lot of discussion around story and games, right? Some people are, oh, story is bad, story is good, blah, blah, blah. Story is everything, you know. Yeah, so we would just want to clarify what we mean, okay? So we don't mean, it's don't, right? Sorry, English.
Yeah.
Games with gameplay and story separated, which is most popular story games, right? So the worst, like, so this is most RPGs that come out, actually. But also, like, the worst examples, which is might be controversial, is like big AAA story games like Uncharted, Last of Us, God of War, Rockstar games, right? Rockstar games stories are pretty terrible, actually. I'm not saying the game, like, the gameplay might be fine, right? I mean, I don't know if it actually is, but more, like, I could see some, obviously people play them more for the gameplay, but like Last of Us and Uncharted, it's more like story games, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that it's very detached, right? It's not connected to it. We'll get back to that. So we're just clarifying right now, like, what we mean a bit, right? And we'll get back to that kind of story later in the episode. So where we want to start out is this, like, I don't know what to call it, like hybrid. Like, it's not story necessarily, but it's like, it's not gameplay either. It's utilizing the medium in interesting ways. Is that how we would say it?
Yeah, I mean, couldn't we just say like fourth wall breaking?
Yeah, but it's not always fourth wall necessarily. So like the games we're talking about is like Kojima games, for example, Metal Gear Solid. Another good example of that is the Nier games, Yoko Taro and Undertale, Toby Fox. Yeah. Another one that people like to talk about, which I don't have, I have not played, that I know you have played, that a lot of people talk about, and I think you didn't like it, but which is...
Are you Inscription, or are you talking about Inscription?
No, those are actually a good point as well.
Yes.
But like Pony Island and stuff. But I'm talking about Spec Ops The Line.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, as someone who has not played Spec Ops The Line, to me it seems like the reason people like it, and that it's just like, I think it's a valid reason, is that it utilizes the fact that you're in control to make you feel more bad about what you're doing, right?
Yeah. And
that you doing that is powerful, and I think that's interesting. I just don't know if Spec Ops does it well, and so maybe you can talk about Spec Ops.
I don't know. It was a very long time ago that I played it. I was like a kid, so maybe if I replayed it today, I would have different opinions. I just think the execution was kind of meh.
Yeah, because I think that was more of a last-minute thing and just ended up being good, right?
It seems...
did a good story.
Yeah, it seems like... Because the thing is, it's like a super generic first-person, or like military shooter, right?
Thing.
Yeah, exactly. Modern military shooter, I think is the term. It's a very, very
not
generic...
anymore.
Yeah, true.
Do those anymore.
But like, yeah. but the story was very like, you know, oh, you're doing these war crimes and you didn't even think about it beforehand, right? And I think, as you said, I think it wasn't like planned out like that from the beginning. It seems a lot like they were making a generic military shooter, and then there was like a really good writer on the team who was like, okay, I'll just do this because I'm the best. And then like they did an interesting story. Like, I might be wrong, I don't know, but like that's the vibe I get from it. So it's kind of bad in the execution.
I mean, that's the vibe I get as well, and I haven't even played it, so it's like,
But also, I guess, to sort of defend it a bit, there's a bit of charm in it, like being a super generic military shooter, right? Because that's sort of the point. Stuff, But yeah, anyways, so those kinds of games.
Yeah, those kinds of games. So I have actually not played a lot of the Metal Gear games, but I've played like the first one, and then Metal Gear Solid 1 as well. And I don't know. I think so. I don't know how to say this in a good way, because I don't really like Kojima's games. Actually, I don't think they're that nice to play or whatever. Like, but I really appreciate how he uses the medium, right? So, for example, in the first one, there's a ton of stuff. Like, for example, one thing is there, like, I guess this is sort of the following thing, right? So, a slight spoiler for the first Metal Gear Solid or whatever. There is this boss, right, that reads your mind, and the way you solve that is by changing the port of the controller on the old, like, PlayStation, right? And that sounds silly, but it is actually really interesting, right? Because it's like, it's utilizing the fact that you are in control and have to, it's sort of, do you have a good way to put it?
I mean, yeah, like it utilizes the medium, as you said. I think that's the best way to put it, right? It's like, it's more,
I think it makes you feel more of what's happening in the story.
Yeah,
so for
exactly.
Because there's a torture scene, right? And so, I mean, I'm speculating here because I don't know Kojima, right? So I'm guessing like he's thinking, okay, the player's getting tortured. How do I make the player feel like they're being tortured? Well, it's this extremely like it's. What do you say? It's a quick time event.
Or a
psi-inducing quick time event. And in most games that would be really bad, and a lot of people probably say that it's bad these days. But I think it's super interesting because it's like, you're like stuck in this prison, and you are literally getting stressed out because you're gonna get sent back to the thing where you get tortured, where you need to spam the button or it's game over, and you need to redo the entire section. There is no checkpoint in the section. That is super interesting in my opinion. But the thing is, I think it would be more, for me personally, it would be more interesting to build on one of the things. He's like lots of small ideas, right? So that's why his ideas kind of doesn't work for me really. But I really appreciate what he's doing, right? And it's sort of similar but less extreme with Yoko Taro, right? So, okay, we're spoiling games today. I don't care. So, like the first Nier, for example, it's a very like mediocre game, I would say, but there is a ton of interesting stuff in it, like along these lines. And one of the most interesting things, in my opinion, is that when you get to the end, even it's funny because we've talked about you should value your save files, right? So it's kind of interesting because it plays into that, right? So, but when you get to the end and you've done like a bunch of stuff, you need to do a bunch of stuff. You have two choices, right? You can like what do you say? What's the English word? You give up your life for someone else. What's that called?
Sacrifice yourself?
Sacrifice, yes, sacrifice. Yeah. But the way you sacrifice, so like to make you feel like you're sacrificing something, you need to delete your save file, right? The game asks you, okay, would you want to sacrifice your save file to save this character in this game, right? Which again, it's like this thing where it's interesting, right? And he did something similar in the sequel and stuff. So he has these like interesting ideas about how to do these kinds of things. But again, like overall, these games doesn't quite work for me because again, it's very segregated and stuff, right? And some of the for example, Nier Automata or however you pronounce it, like the combat in that is kind of meh, right? It's a bit annoying and stuff, but it's still like interesting and how it I don't know if you...
Yeah, I think this is why Undertale shines.
Right, that's a better example of this effect, right?
Because it's like, as you said, in like Kojima games and in Nier, it's like there are a few sections that do these kinds of things that are really cool, and then there's like super boring generic gameplay in between, and it's kind of, whereas Undertale is more
just the good,
just the good stuff, right?
Yeah,
like it's way more focused and like does one thing and does it very well.
And it's really hard to describe as well. Like when you think about Undertale, it's all of these like small things that depend, like the narrative or whatever the word is very dependent on your actions, right? And that creates a very interesting story in quotation marks, right? Because I guess that's the way to put it. Because like it's not again, maybe I said it, maybe I wasn't quite as clear as I should have been in the beginning. Like a very strict sequential story with, you know, story bits like in a book does not work in games, in my opinion. It's terrible. It just creates this segregated thing. You need this thing where you're doing thing and it makes you feel in certain ways, which is the point of stories most of the time, right? It's about making you like if you read a good novel, it's about experiencing what the person in the novel is experiencing, and therefore getting like a second-hand or third-hand experience, right? And then like relating that to your own life or something. And games are super good at that part, and that's why I'm saying like story games can be really good. So like one of my this is kind of funny because I haven't played any Lucas Pope games, but I think his games are great. Like from the story perspective, they are super good. Both Papers, Please and Obra Dinn are really well thought out, and they're very like story focused games, I would say. I think most people wouldn't say that, probably, I don't know, but to me that's like, this is like, yes, like Papers, Please, I mean both, but like for me, like Papers, Please is so good because it's like, okay, you're really getting the experience of being this person sitting, stamping in people through the like what do you call the borders, right? Yeah, it's like it really gets you so like way better than a book about someone doing it would do, right? Yeah, it's super good, and I think Obra Dinn does it similar, but it's more in the like detective direction, right?
I think it's very funny that you say that a lot of people probably don't consider Lucas Pope games story games, because I think that's sort of the problem we're getting at here today. Yes. Because like Lucas Pope games are story games done well, right? Yes. Yeah. So this is the story is the gameplay in a way, and you know I haven't actually played Papers, Please. I definitely should someday, but I have played Obra Dinn, and it's a very fantastic game. I like it a lot. And yes, and you know, for those of you that don't know, Obra Dinn is like a detective game where you're like on a boat that's like everyone has died, and you're like a detective from like the insurance company who's like going to check out how everyone died and see if there's like insurance stuff, whatever. I think in general, you know, not only talking about Lucas Pope, who is obviously a very, very good person, or very good at making games. Sorry, I don't know how
we
he's
don't know
person.
Him, so I don't think so. But
yeah, but like I think. Detective games, like in general, are very, very good for video games. And the reason for that is that, like, if you read a detective novel or like you watch a detective movie or TV show or whatever, it's often very clear that like the creator / author / whatever wants the person who's watching or reading to participate, right? It's like, this is a mystery, and you know they're like dropping clues, and you know the reader has to like you know tie stuff together and whatever, and they have their own theory about who's the bad guy and whatever. But what often ends up happening, like obviously there are very well written like detective books and movies and whatever, so this isn't always the case, but in a lot of like generic or normal whatever,
not so good.
Yeah, exactly. Detective stuff, it's often like in the end the detective like reveals the final very important piece of evidence that like ties everything together, and everything's super obvious, and like if they had revealed that earlier it would have been super obvious who it was, so they didn't reveal that, and it always feels a bit cheap. And that's the reason I think games are very good for this, because like in the game is about like figuring out who did the bad stuff. And so like I think if you want to make a good story game, like making it a detective game is like the easiest way to do that, because like detective stories, like they beg to be in the game format, I guess.
It's
and
kind
so
of funny because so I actually enjoy reading some detective novels from time to time, actually, and one of the reasons I think I do that is because they are sort of games, right? They're like you said, you need to like think about and guess who's the culprit or whatever. And so I think you're right about them translating well, because I mean, because
they're like the reader is active in them, like even in the book format, and so like translating that into gameplay.
That as well.
Yeah, true.
I think it's more mechanical, right? It's
exactly.
More like it's more. Like,
it is almost like
people and. You know the clues and whatever, and it's like, okay, it can't be this person because blah, and it can't be this person, but it can be, stuff like that. So
but of course that like that doesn't only go for Obra Dinn, right? So I think what's it called, like Outer Wilds is very popular, and that's like sort of a detective game, right? It's more of a like it's not a murder mystery, but it's like science mystery or whatever. Exactly. But it's very much you tie clues together, and then there's the Golden Idol games.
But they are. But before we go to Golden Idol, Outer Wild is really interesting because I don't think anyone would consider it a story game, or most people wouldn't. But I think that's
maybe
very
not.
much.
But I do.
Yeah. No, it is a story game for sure. But again, like you mentioned earlier, I don't think people view it that way. Maybe they do.
No, maybe. I don't know. I think Outer Wilds is very, very funny and interesting because, like, it's, like, it's gotten very, like, it's a very popular game, right? It's a very successful game. Like, even among, like, normies or whatever you want to call them, right? So, like, I see a lot of people who say about like Outer Wilds, like, oh yeah, this game changed the way I viewed gaming and whatever. Like, I see that more with Outer Wilds than like any other game, and I find that really interesting because like it's basically just a detective game, right? Like it's very well done in many ways. Like the world is very very well done, and like the exploration is very well done. So it's like very very well done. But like at the end of the day, it's like a detective story and. Or well, a mystery game or whatever you want to call it, right? And I don't know what I want.
Though that a lot, like if you, I would say there are a lot of not that good detective style games as well, right?
True.
So that sort of makes it harder to put it in that category, right? Yeah. Because I think a lot of people think of detective games more mechanically, where it's like, you use your fourth sense or not fourth, whatever, seventh sense. I don't know like, how many senses are there? Sorry, I don't know senses. And you're like everything is like in grayscale, and you're like, oh, there's the clue, and then you put those together.
Like
and
the
you can
Batman investigation mode with the X-ray and stuff.
That's that kind of detective stuff is garbage. That's
because like Outer Wilds actually does that very well, right? Because it's like that part. Is like not perfect because there is like a quest log and stuff like that.
I see.
Which is it's not exactly a quest log, but there's like a log of all the clues and stuff. But like there's no like mechanic for it. It's like you find a clue that says, you can access this area by doing this. Yeah. And then like you just do that, like you do the thing the clue says, and then you access the area, and then that area contains another clue. So there's like no mechanics there. It's just like pure gameplay. I don't know what you get what I mean, right? It's like it's very pure in like you find the clue and then you like follow the clue and then you get to the next clue, right? There's no like UI stuff or whatever.
It's sort of the like extrinsic stuff.
We
talked about the Stanley Parable, where it's like you just do things and your reward is you get to see more things.
Actually, that's very interesting that you bring it up, because like one of my favorite parts of Outer Wilds is a completely optional thing. So because basically there's like a time loop, right? And it's like in space, and then every 22 minutes there's like the sun blows up, and then time resets to like 22 minutes before the sun blows up. And like I won't spoil it, but like you can actually figure out why the sun blows up. Like you can figure out the reason for the sun blowing up. And like you don't actually need to figure that out to like finish the game and like break the time loop. That's like completely optional, and like the path to get there is like super super interesting. It's really well done, and like, you know, it felt like super satisfying to like finally figure out like, oh, this is why the sun is blowing up. Like even though there wasn't like a big in-game achievement or whatever, like the fanfare or whatever, it's like I just figured that out and I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting how I like figured that out, and it like didn't really matter, but like I could figure that out because the clues were there. So yeah, very interesting.
Speaking of time loops, actually, that got me thinking about the game that I didn't bring it up beforehand, or like I didn't prepare it, but I just realized that this is a sort of interesting example of this, which is a game called, what is it called? It's called like Hero Must Die or something.
I recognize the name, but I don't.
And it's a time loop, and it's sort of not perfect, actually, but it's interesting because it's an RPG, but it's a reverse RPG. So it's like, oh, the hero has like some days, I don't remember, left to live, and the hero gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and everyone else gets stronger. And so it's this story, right? Like I remember I read something from the, what do you say? The creator, right? I think it was the creator of like Patapon or something.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I could be wrong. I will have to correct that if that's no. But I think it was that, right? And there's like a new version that is available on like PC and stuff. Because it was for like some mobile thing in the beginning. And it was he talked about like he got the idea of the story from like seeing his father like get sick and like weaker, and like I thought that was like really interesting. It's like talking about like, you know, like about time and like how you should value time and like, you know, stuff like that, and it's doing that in an interesting way. There's some weird stuff because it's very Japanese, you know. You know what I mean when I say that. But it's still like it's doing that thing as well, right? Where it's like using the fact that you're in control and like, oh my god, I only have this much time left, and you know, right? It's interesting, and like what legacy do you want to leave behind is sort of the point of the game, right? Because the end of the game is like your funeral, right? Then it restarts the loop. So like, what is left? Yeah. So that's also like sort of interesting, I guess. I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but yeah, sort of similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because as we keep talking, we keep like coming up with even more examples. And you mentioned briefly Inscription before, right?
Right.
And, I'm not a super big fan of Inscription. I think it's a decent game. It's fine. But the game is made by Daniel Mullins.
That's very fourth wall, right? That is
yes.
When you said fourth wall, I would say that is the real, because the other ones are not really fourth wall in that way. But this one is that for real, right? Yeah,
but I actually didn't want to talk about Inscription. I wanted to talk about his previous game that he made before Inscription, called The Hex, and that's an actually excellent game. Like if you haven't checked it out, check it out now. It's very good. And I think what's so interesting about Daniel Mullins' games, because he made Pony Island first, right, is that they utilize the game format to do like horror in a very interesting way, right? And so maybe I can spoil this. Yeah, I can spoil this because it doesn't really work anymore. So I won't spoil anything about the Hex because you should just play it, right? But like in Pony Island, right? There's like a part of the game where like you play it and then you get like a Steam message. And then you like shift tab to check, but there's no Steam message, right? Because it says it's from your friend and he's like mocking you for something in the game.
No, you have like an option. I think I remember you have an option, and then the Steam message, it like from a random friend, it's like, oh my god, you picked that option or something. How dumb are you or something? It was really cool.
And it doesn't really work anymore because I replayed it like fairly recently, but like the Steam UI is completely different now, so it doesn't work at all. But like the Hex does like stuff that's similar to that. That's very interesting, which I won't spoil because you should play it. But like, I think it's very interesting. I think horror games also, like detective games, are very good for like
They're also very popular, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Like horror stories. Sorry, stories are very good for games.
Yeah. But even just horror games are actually quite like.
Yes.
Just in general, because it works so well for the format because you're in control. Even if it's like horror slop games or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like. It's not like you're watching a monster on a screen. It's like
you're being hunted by the monster.
The monster is in the game. It works really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if that's not like the most interesting stories, right? That's actually more towards the gameplay, I would say. But it's still,
But I think, like in general, how do I say this? Like, I think one thing that's misunderstood about game stories is that they have to be like very catered to the medium, right? Because like if you write a book, you can write a certain type of story. So for example, you can
write any type of story in a book.
Yeah. But like, or rather, sorry, the other way around. So like, you can't adapt a book to a movie, right? Completely, right? No. Because maybe the book is about something that a character is thinking, and like you can't show what a character is thinking like in the same way. So you need to like, if you want to adapt it to a movie, right? You need to like change how everything works and whatever. But like,
there's actually even more reasons, I would argue, why you can't do it. Like, it could, for example, be how it's narrated, right? The narrating style, like, maybe it matters a lot that this person is the narrator, for example, and that affects the story. Or maybe there's other things like how you imagine someone being, like how someone looks or whatever, and how that affects, like, how it's written is actually making you think in a way where it doesn't match, like, what it actually is, and so that, there's tons of stuff like that that you can't do in a movie. Yeah. And the other way around, to be clear, there's things you can do in movies that you can't do in games, right? Or sorry, in books. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sort of like the point I want to make is like, because it seems like when people discuss story in video games, they discuss how to like shove a book or a movie story into a video game and like make it work, which is like the completely wrong way to look at it. You should do it the other way around, right? Where it's like, what story can I tell with this game? And detective games, for example, happen to be very good for that, because like it's naturally a good fit, because the reader / watcher is already an active participant in that in a way, and so like actually making them the detective is like a very easy step to take. Yeah, now of course you still need to make it like good, but like it's very it fits the story type or whatever you want to call it.
It's interesting that you brought that up, actually, because we talked about why it was, like we mentioned Last of Us earlier, right? So why is The Last of Us not a good game? And a really good example or like way to see that is that there is a TV series now, right? And people say the TV series is really good.
Yeah.
And that can't, like, that must, at least to me, maybe I'm weird, but to me that must mean that the game is not good. If the story can be told without the gameplay, then it was just better served as a story, like as a TV series or a movie. So it was just a waste of time that you had to play, right, in The Last of Us or whatever.
Yeah, I think especially like The Last of Us is like an adaptation of the story, right? It's not a different story in like the Last of Us universe.
Yeah, I think so.
It's
I haven't watched it, but yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
To be fair, I haven't played the first Last of Us.
I have played the first Last of Us, and it's not very good. But yeah, I agree, because I feel like, maybe this could be done, right? But like, if someone said, oh, we're making a Return of the Obra Dinn TV show, I would be like, what? That wouldn't really work, right? It
would be way worse.
Yeah, it could be like set in the Obra Dinn universe or whatever, but like it wouldn't be like Obra Dinn at all, because like the story is in the gameplay, right?
Yeah.
And so it just like doesn't work the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
But sorry.
You go first.
Well, I was gonna talk about ludonarrative dissonance, right?
Oh wow, that's so funny, because I was gonna just say that. I was literally gonna say that, because what I was gonna say is that. What was I gonna say? My brain gave up. You were talking about stories in movies, right? Yes. Yeah. Yes. I was gonna bring up the point that so you mentioned that, right? And what I feel like a lot of games miss, right, which you basically said, is that just the other. You said it in the other direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is that in a game the player has what do you say? Control, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you try to make a traditional, like written story, like I don't know what to call it, narrated story. That's not the right word either. I don't know what word to use, but like a story with a beginning and then like very structured. That does not work because you will very quickly end up with what you said, ludonarrative dissonance, right? Where it's like, for example, in Uncharted, it's basically rip-off of Indiana Jones, right? Except for the hero is a mass murderer, right?
Yeah.
That's but so like
he's like killing waves of hundreds of poor lackeys and whatever. Yeah.
So like, and then he goes home to his wife or whatever, and everything, lives happily ever after. And it's like, does this actually work? I don't know. I don't know about that. And also, you know, the gameplay is getting in the way of story, the same as The Last of Us or whatever. Yeah. So you go ahead.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say is like, I think. Because a lot of people are like aware of ludonarrative dissonance and they discuss narrative dissonance a lot. But I feel like a lot of people's like view of it is very superficial.
Yes.
So they'll be like, oh yeah, so let's take the Uncharted example, right? It's like, okay, well, Nathan Drake is a mass murderer. Okay, how about we like add that into the story? And so all of a sudden the ludonarrative dissonance is gone, right? Like that doesn't really work.
Well, it would work if you wrote a good story where he was a mass murderer. So because that's what you end up like. For example, if we go back, right? That's sort of what the Nier story is, right? Would you argue against that? It's sort of like this moral thing. Like the second
maybe one. Yeah, maybe, but like
I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying that because making, for example, a TV series out of the Nier game would be less interesting than playing the Nier game, right?
Yeah,
that's the point. But making an Uncharted TV series wouldn't, and I think part of it is because of the ludonarrative dissonance. Because what's happening in Nier is you're going around killing these robots, and then you realize that they're not so bad or whatever, right? I'm not saying it's the deepest game. I'm just saying it's interesting in a way, right? And then, what was my point? Yeah, right. And then you get more emotions or whatever out of it because you're actually responsible for the killing, right? It's the same as the game Spec Ops, right? It's the same as Spec Ops. It's that the fact that you're part of the narrative matters, right? I think it does, because otherwise it's completely disconnected, and so like in Uncharted, right? Then it's like, okay, the gameplay doesn't matter, so you treat the story as if it's not part of the gameplay, and then the gameplay is completely pointless. So you should just make a movie, right?
Yeah.
So the gameplay needs to be attention. I feel like it does matter, but keep going.
Yeah. So like, I don't disagree with you, but I feel like. Maybe I'm just like I feel like the way the solution is presented is very superficial. It's like if you take Uncharted and you like add a subplot about how Nathan Drake is an evil mass murderer, you'll suddenly fix Uncharted and it'll be a good game. And I think that's sort of the problem I have, because I don't necessarily believe that's true. Like I do think you could make a good game with that, but like because at the end of the day, the problem with Uncharted, right, is that it's Indiana Jones, but they didn't know what the gameplay was gonna be, so they just made you shoot some guys, right? Like that's basically it. And
I see
like
what you're saying, like if you compare it to like GTA.
Yeah.
GTA does not have ludonarrative dissonance, but it's still
exactly. It's still a boring game, right? Because in GTA you play as like a raging psychopath who runs over people, and like that fits with the story. It fits with the story, right? But it's still not an interesting game, and I think that's because
at least I
exactly.
mean, I don't like it, but I don't. I could argue that the gameplay is fine in some aspects. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, but like. Yeah, because I don't think the gameplay does enough in GTA to be an interesting story, right? Like, the story fits with the gameplay, but the gameplay doesn't fit with the stories. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
But it's also interesting because a lot of ludonarrative people, I feel like, do it the other way, and then I think it works even worse. Which is, they'll say like, oh, we have Uncharted, which is Indiana Jones, but you shoot people. how do we make the story work?
Yeah.
We remove the shooting, and then you end up with, not so interesting walking simulators, perhaps.
Well, there's a puzzle where Nathan Drake reveals the solution after 5 seconds. No, just kidding.
Yeah, that is also true.
I should probably pull that lever over there.
Where it's like they're trying to make the game fit to the story, and I feel like if you're there, then you're just simply not interested in making the games at all.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think maybe that's the problem with like the ludonarrative dissonance discussion. It's like, how do I make the game fit the story when it's like
it's just not how you're supposed to do it.
Exactly, because then you're not approaching the problem from the perspective of like, I'm making a game. You're approaching the problem from the perspective of, I'm shoehorning a story into this game. And so I feel like, games like Obra Dinn and the Hex or whatever that we talked about already, they do it way better because like as we mentioned, a lot of people probably don't even see these games as story games because like the gameplay is so integrated in the story, right? And it's very obvious, like when you play that game or those games, that they have been designed like with the gameplay and the story like from the start, right? Like obviously not everything, maybe like they change stuff along the way, but like it's a very like holistic package or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
But there is one more thing related to ludonarrative dissonance that I want to mention, and that's like because a lot of game stories they rely on time pressure, right? Or well, a lot of stories in general rely on like some sort of time pressure, right? Or some sort of stakes. It doesn't even need to be time pressure, but some sort of stake. Exactly, stuff like that. And the game I wanted to talk about here is a game which I roast in at every chance I get because I hate it more than everything in this world. And that's The Witcher 3.
That's not true. You're being a bit mean.
Yes, I am being a bit overdramatic. But it's The Witcher 3. Now, in The Witcher 3, you play as Geralt of Rivia, who is a super cool, edgy Witcher guy, who is looking for, like, it's not really his daughter, but it's kind of his daughter, Ciri, because she's been kidnapped by an evil bad guy, and you're, like, tracing her steps and, like, trying to find her, and you're talking to the locals to see what they have to say. And it's very time critical because Ciri is getting kidnapped and she's getting teleported into another dimension or something. I don't remember the story exactly. Anyways, during that very time-sensitive, deep story about looking for your kidnapped daughter, Geralt of Rivia decides to do around 500 hours of side quests.
Play the card game, whatever it's
called. Exactly. He sits down and plays Gwent every chance he gets. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, Gwent, let's go. 10 hours of Gwent, now, boom. I'm looking for my daughter, she doesn't matter. And I feel like that's a very like funny instance of ludonarrative dissonance, I guess. Like a subtype of ludonarrative dissonance, where it's like, it's very obvious that the stakes don't matter, right? And it goes back a bit to like what you talked about with Nier, where it's like, oh, you should delete your save file to save this character or whatever. Yeah. It's like, what if games did that? Like, if you fail at the final boss fight, the world actually ends, something like that. I'm not saying that would necessarily be a good game, but like, it
would be more interesting.
Yes, it would be interesting in a way. But it needs to be well executed as well, of course. But anyways, it's like, I feel like a lot of stories have a lot of, wow, that's very deep. A lot of stories have a lot of stakes, very deep. And like, games are very bad at...
if they're not running.
Exactly, at enforcing that, because they have gameplay, and like the gameplay isn't always connected to the story, right? As in Witcher, it's like, oh yeah, I'm on a very time-sensitive mission to save my daughter, but I'm gonna play Gwent.
That's funny actually, because that's sort of like why games like Minecraft or whatever, or like more not, hero saves the world style stories. I mean, Minecraft is a good example, right? Where it's like, oh look, I'm just gonna go here and I'm gonna explore the world, right? Yeah. Well, obviously then you have all the time in the world, right? The narrative is very clear about that, right? Not saying those games necessarily are story games, right? But I think the world building, I guess we'll get to that later, right? But like the world and the setting actually matters a lot in all games, right? So even if it's not a story game, even if it's like an action game or like beat 'em up or shoot 'em up, right? the setting is still important, right? It's like if it wasn't important, you would just have, you know, a black screen with blobs, right? Even Space Invaders, you know, it's like you can tell very clearly what the designer is going for there, right? It's like, look, these menacing aliens are coming down to this whatever it is, right? And you can clearly see that they're drawn in a way where they look very scary, and they're like green or something, so you know they're aliens, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, if it was just blobs I mean, maybe at that time it would be fine, but right, I think it helps, right? Because it sells the like, oh, I am shooting a brick on a thing. No, like, because our brains are like, people underestimate, right, how like much that part, like the imaginary part matters, right? It's like, like, oh look, a game, like, because some people are like, oh, games are just, you know, you click a button and blah 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 blah. No, look, I'm a spaceship and I'm defending Earth from aliens, right? It's that part is important, right?
Yeah,
you can't just remove that part. It's like super important for the entire experience, right?
Like, if I may be a bit superficial here,
sure,
for a short moment.
Yeah.
So I've been talking a lot about Final Fight, you know, previously in the podcast and stuff like that, because I've been playing it recently. And before Final Fight, I didn't like beat 'em ups at all.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why, like, there are a few reasons.
Setting, right.
Most of it is probably skill issue, but like one very big thing is that like the setting of most beat 'em ups is like super boring. It's like Final Fight is a very good game, but like being a dude who punches dudes on the subway isn't very cool, right? And so that's probably
like a fantasy game or something.
Yeah, so exactly. Like, oh yeah, I'm an epic knight and I'm killing orcs or whatever. That would have been so cool. I would have played that when I was like 10, and it would have been amazing. But 10-year-old me didn't want to play like a muscular guy beating up other muscular guys. That's not cool.
And that is actually like an interesting point from a design perspective, right? That people don't talk about enough. Where it's like, because you know, there's people that enjoy beat 'em ups, and they're talking about, oh, how do we make beat 'em ups more popular, right? And it's always about like, well, the dumb people will say like, oh, we need to add progression or whatever, right? And they ruin the game. But the smart people, they will say stuff like, oh, we need to, you know, maybe they need to make it more, like they need to add stuff to make it more easier to get into, right? Or whatever, right? But I think talking about the setting actually matters a lot as well. Like, could you do something interesting with the setting, or like
doesn't what's it called? Absolum, I think. Like, it's made by the Street of Rage people. Like,
the setting is way more.
Yeah, that game looks absolutely trash. I haven't played it, right, but it's like a beat 'em up with like roguelike progression and stuff like that. It looks absolutely trash, but like the setting is super cool. Like, I looked at that game and I was like, oh, what's this game? And then I was like, oh yeah, this is a roguelite progression based whatever, and I was like, okay, never mind. So it's like, if Absolum had been like a pure beat 'em up, I would have been like, oh, what's this? This looks super cool. And I'm like, oh, this is a beat 'em up. Nice, I'm gonna play it. And like, I feel like a lot of people underestimate that like initial attraction thing.
For sure.
Now, that being said, of course, gameplay is very important, right? We're not saying that
no, but the thing is, you can sell a setting without. So my point is sort of, if let's say you're bad at art. Or like you're a game designer and you don't know a lot of program, you don't know a lot of art, but you know how to use like Game Maker or something, and you just put together something and you draw like your MS Paint characters and you have your little, you know, narrative of like what's going on. That is way more interesting than you going, well, I don't know art, so let's just put on some random thing like abstract art or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think
it can work. Like, for example, Super Hexagon, right, is very a good example. But that's the point. Like, the point is that it is a hexagon, so you can't do that game without the fact that it's abstract shape.
That kind of is the setting in a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. But my point is, like, it matters a lot that, like, okay, let's say you're making a platformer, and then, like, even if you can't draw, just that you're trying to sell, I know a perfect example of this. Dream Quest, exactly.
Yes, I was thinking of that too.
It's perfect because, like, okay, it's just this image paint, but it's still like, oh, that's a dragon, obviously, right?
And like, it's literally written by a child, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, drawn by a child, right?
Yeah, sorry, drawn.
and like. Okay, like it's still to your brain. Like your brain knows, okay, if it has like wings and scales and stuff, that's a dragon, and it's if it's a sword and an armor and stuff, that's a knight, right? And you get okay, I'm a knight, and that's right. Unless it's like if it's abstract, then it doesn't work, right? It can work if you're good at writing, because you can, like for example, with RPGs, you could do like you could have very minimal amounts of art and use a lot of text to sell the narrative, right? But you still you can't just like, oh yeah, you're a blob and that's a blob and here's numbers, right? There is that's not a game or whatever.
There is one game, Thomas Was Alone. Have you played it?
Oof, yeah, a long time ago, I think.
Yeah. That game actually does it very well, but I think that game works because it's sort of the point. Because Thomas Was Alone is like a narrative game where there's like a narrator, but like the graphics is literally just like rectangles.
Yes.
But I think that's like the point of the game, right? It's like the narration and like the gameplay.
Isn't it like, oh, Thomas was alone and then he found a friend or something, and that friend was a like triangle or something, and the triangle was very pointy and something. I don't know. Like he's trying to sell like emotions with their shapes and stuff. Yeah. It's interesting.
So like, I guess what I want to say is like, it's not necessarily that everything has to be an epic fantasy tale, right? Yeah, it's more like
that's our bad taste in
like, exactly.
Right?
It's more that like do something interesting with the world. And in the case of Thomas Was Alone, the point is the minimalism in a way. It's like I can tell this like super deep story about very interesting characters with just like cubes and some good animation and whatever. And like that's the point. Or like in Super Hexagon, it's like, oh yeah, there's a hexagon and that's it. Like that's cool also, right? So it's not that everything has to be like an epic fantasy tale.
If we're going with Terry again, it's like, look, you're playing as a die and there's die everywhere, and
very clever.
Because I'm trying to think, do you have a good example where I was thinking of like Souls games, for example, but they are kind of similar, but I'm trying to think like some studio that made like a very different settings-wise games, but gameplay similar, right? But they still feel very different. Like let's say Warcraft and Star. I mean, they're different in gameplay, but but.
Like, do you mean like the same gameplay but with a different story?
Yes, or with different settings, sort of. Like how those games feel is very different, but they are actually very similar, right? I mean, my bad example is Souls, right? So it's like Bloodborne versus Dark Souls. Right? Someone in the comments will go, no, they're not similar. Okay, whatever. But they're similar enough, in my opinion. Like, they're kind of similar. They have some differences, right? But it feels very different to play Bloodborne because it's this, like, spooky, blood, edgy story, right? And Dark Souls is, like, more fantasy, So it feels very different to play, even though the gameplay is very similar. So I think it matters. It's our point, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think the gameplay isn't, like, is quite different, but what are they called? Like The Age of Decadence. Do you remember it? I played it a while ago and I talked about it. It's like RPG, this Greek RPG.
Guy.
Yeah, like where you're playing as one character. It's actually pretty good. So if you haven't played it, you should check it out. But the developers who made that afterwards made like a sci-fi RPG.
Yeah.
And it's party based, so it's a bit different. But that game didn't work at all for me. Like I couldn't get into it. And I don't think it's purely the setting. I think there's a few like gameplay issues with that game. I forget what it's called. Colony Ship, I think. Very generic name. Yeah, I think it's called Colony Ship. So the first one is called Age of Decadence, and it's like a super interesting like Greek mythology RPG or whatever. And then there's Colony Ship, which is like weird sci-fi stuff. But like the Colony Ship didn't work for me, and I think part of it is the setting, but a lot of it is probably also the gameplay. Yeah.
Yes.
Talking about RPGs, you wanted to talk about Dragon Age Origins.
Did I want to? Okay.
Yes. Well, we both wanted to, but you you had something wise to say.
So we have obviously talked about Dragon Age Origins before, and we've said it's a good game, and or like there is good things in it at least. I would probably say it's a good game. I don't know.
Yeah.
With flaws, maybe.
Yes.
I don't know. And then the listeners right now would go, well, hang on, that's sort of the thing you're talking about. That the story doesn't connect well with the gameplay. So why is that a good game? Well, see, that's the thing, right? That is the thing. It is a good game. it's not a good story, right? The story part of that game is not good. It's just a generic copy of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's literally an orc invasion, and like someone betrays
a movie of
and,
that game, it would not be a good movie. What is interesting is the sort of, I don't know what to call it, like diplomatic options and things you can do along the way, right? With the narrative, and not necessarily the outcome, right? As a whole, right? Parts of it.
Yeah, because like you don't really change the outcome, right? So for those
Which
of you
is a good thing as well with like branching paths. By the way, actually we can talk about that later, right? Or should we talk about that now? Like branching path stories.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Branching path stories should have that formula, because branching path stories that just create different stories are kind of meh. Because like, what was the point of the story? Like, it's interesting if you go. Again, even in this case where the story is not that interesting, right? But you sort of want it to go back to the same point.
Like there are some exceptions, like I think
sure.
Stanley Parable, which we've talked about previously, like that's, but then the branching is kind of the point, right? It's like
maybe that's not so hard. I'm just thinking in that case where it's like an RPG and then
I think RPGs does it very poorly in general.
But then again, the story doesn't matter, so I don't know. I guess it's sort of I think I know how to describe it now, because you want your decisions to feel like they were good, right? So if it goes back into the same thing, it makes sense, right? So it's like, I went through like, even if the story is not interesting, the setting is kind of right. So when you get back to the like, okay, now we're in the main plot again, but I was evil this time or something, right? I don't know, it's not that interesting, but you get what I'm saying, right? So then you're like getting it from a different perspective or something, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would
I
think a bit more about that to be perfectly clear on what I think there, but go ahead.
I think going back to Dragon Age Origins, what's really interesting about that game, because the story, as you said, it's like super generic. It's like, oh, there's an orc invasion, and then the king goes down to stop the orc invasion, but he gets betrayed by his top general, and now he's the king. Epic drama. And then like the story of the game is basically that you like unite an army of all the races, you know, the dwarves and the elves and everything, and then you go to fight the orcs, and then you go to fight the evil betrayal king guy, and everything is good. And I think what's very interesting about the Dragon Age origin story is sort of what we talked about, right? You don't change the outcome, you sort of change the factions that help you reach the outcome, sort of.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's see if I can take an example without spoiling anything. Yeah. So like, if you go to the Dwarf Kingdom, for example, there's like, the king has just died, and so there are two guys like competing for the throne in the Dwarf Kingdom, and you need to pick one of them, and then, you know, he will help you accordingly or whatever. And I think I don't, as you say, I'm not exactly sure why that's interesting, but it is for some reason.
Yes.
And I think a lot of games do similar things, and it always works. I think maybe it's like, it has to do with like, as we talked about, world building and setting, where it's like the factions. I think games that focus a lot on factions are very interesting in general for some reason.
I think it gets a bit like puzzle gamey or something. Where it's like,
yeah, that's true.
You need to like decide what. Even though all the outcomes are okay, it's like you're trying to politically solve this situation. Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in some cases there are like clear good and bad outcomes, right? So like, for to get like to recruit the humans into your army, you need to like go to this what's it called, like Redcliffe Castle, where a child has been summoned, or like what's it called, not summoned by a demon, but he's been possessed by a demon, right? And you can just kill the kid and like get it over with, or you can like actually like unpossess him or whatever, exorcise him, whatever it's called, and stuff like that. So like, there are some like clear good and bad outcomes, but I think maybe it's what you say. It's like, it's sort of a puzzle game to like solve the situation in the best way possible. Maybe that's it, because it's the same with the elves.
You could argue like, well, you're min-maxing, so you just kill the child or whatever. Just run for some reason because you don't need the humans or whatever. Or like, it's not playing into the. And it's a bit of the role-playing stuff as well, right? Which we talked about sometimes. That's fine as well if you enjoy that, right? Like literal role-playing, not game, or like, I would argue that's probably one of the better role-playing games as well, right? Like literal role-playing.
Yeah, probably.
Because of how much impact what you're deciding has, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't have any impact on the end of the story. well, yeah.
Well, that doesn't matter if you're actually if you're role-playing. That's even better, because then it's
that's
like,
a good point.
Oh, I'm an evil mage and I am gonna make everyone hate me. But you still get through the narrative. So the narrative is gonna be you were the evil mage that betrayed all your friends but saved the kingdom, versus you're the noble knight that saved all your friends that also saved the kingdom, right?
Yeah. I'm actually I just thought of something, and I need to go on a tangent here.
Yes.
Talking about role playing and talking about Dragon Age got me to think of Mass Effect. And now I am a Mass Effect fan, specifically Mass Effect 2. The others are not so good, but Mass Effect 2 is pretty good. And it's not the best game ever, but I played it when I was young, so it's like nostalgia and whatever. But like one thing that I really hate about Mass Effect, that a lot of people seem to praise for some reason, is the red and blue, bad and good guy decision stuff. It's so stupid. It's the most stupid thing ever. Because the way that works is some decisions, you basically get, it's called Paragon and Renegade, right? So there's like alignments. It's an alignment system, right? Yeah. So it's like you have in D&D where it's like neutral, good or whatever. And the thing is like, so there's a decision where it's like, oh yeah, you can either kill this guy or spare him, and then you get blue XP or red XP. And the problem with that is that to do later choices, you need to have like accumulated enough good XP to make the good choice and enough bad XP to make the bad choice. So I think in the first Mass Effect, like at the end of the game, there's like one of your companions becomes mad at you, and you need to have either enough blue points or enough red points to like convince him to not be mad at you. And like if you don't have enough, he will die or whatever. And the problem with that is that it like locks you into like brain dead, pick the same color every time, right? Because you need to get the good ending of the game, to get the ending where your companions survive, you need to have the most blue points or the most red points. You can't role play a nuanced character or whatever, right? It's like you either go full blue or full red, or you get the bad ending. And I just think that's so cringe, because for some reason a lot of people seem to say that the like Paragon and Renegade system is good for role playing, which I don't agree with at all, because what ends up happening is I either choose, okay, I'm gonna pick all the blue options, or I'm gonna pick all the red options at the start of the game, and then I never think about it again. And that doesn't sound like role playing to me. Weird tangent rant over. What were we talking about before?
Dragon Age.
Yeah, so it's related still.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So perhaps we should move on to one of the final things we wanted to talk about today. Not the final one, but one of the final ones, which is emergent story, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the correct term, but
yes, probably not. But yeah, so your example of that was like Fire Emblem, right?
Yeah, or XCOM. I think games with random characters are better at it, right? Or like Darkest Dungeon, where it's like you get a sort of attachment to a character because of how they like, especially in games with like RNG, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, this guy, he always hits his shots or whatever, so I'm making him a sniper guy, and then you do that, and no, then the alien blew him up, and you know.
You're sad, and then you save Scum.
Yeah, no, you can't play Iron Man.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
You're a real manly player or something. Yeah, and I guess that's not really a story, but it is sort of story, and I think like I think this especially like I hear this a lot from traditional roguelike players. Like this is one of the big things for a lot of them, I think, where it's like, oh, I was gonna die, but I did this thing, and then this like emergent thing happened where like everything blew up, and I managed to survive with 1 HP, and you know, stuff like that. They always talk about how there's a word for it. It's like it's similar to the aha moment, but not at all. Like it's a different word, but it's like that.
Okay.
What do they call it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like the point is that it works like that, right? Where it's like this sort of moment that you're seeking when you play.
Yeah.
And that is sort of story, right? I would argue that's story in a way. But it's more like the story you get out of it, right? It's not a told story.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's not a message from the game in that way. So I don't know if I would class it as story, because it's more of a like for me, like we mentioned earlier, stories are sort of messages that the author, in this case game designer, wants to convey to the player, and in that case there is no message the author wants to convey, right? So I think this falls outside of the story aspect. It's still interesting, I just don't think it's story, right? Because it's not trying to tell you anything, it's more about you telling it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's like a good way to see it. And I feel like maybe this is like from me playing a lot of bad games, but like I feel like a lot of times like emergent story,
it doesn't get that interesting.
Yeah, because the game I'm thinking of is Crusader Kings 3, okay? Because the developers they talk all the time about how like, oh, Crusader Kings 3, it's not supposed to be a game, it's an emergent story generator or whatever. And it's like the game is super uninteresting and like super boring, and there's like a bunch of random pop-up events, and like that's supposed to be the emergent story, and like none of it is interesting. So I feel like in a lot of ways, like emergent gameplay or emergent story, whatever you want to call it, is like is misused in a way. Yeah. So like it can be interesting. Like I agree with you with like traditional roguelikes and stuff like that. That sort of thing is interesting. But there are a lot of cases where people call something emergent story and it's like not interesting whatsoever to me. Maybe I'm being a bit like unclear here what I mean, but I'm not exactly sure what I mean either. So
no, I think this is a like hard one here, because I think this goes a bit into the roleplay stuff, right? Which we both are not that interested in, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it becomes hard for me, I guess, to evaluate a bit like what I think about it. But I think, like you said, like the rogue thing roguelike thing I get more, because it's like, it makes sense that it's like, oh my god, I played and then this happened, right? Or like Dwarf Fortress probably has a lot of emergent stuff like that as well, right?
Yeah. I think maybe the big difference between something like Dwarf Fortress or Crusader Kings is that like Crusader Kings is bad. Because there's been like how do you say this? Like a lot of people in like the Crusader Kings 3 community have been complaining about like how they like updated the game, because like Paradox, they do like massive DLCs for their games and whatever, and like the devs keep saying, oh yeah, we're making this game for you to roleplay, it's not supposed to have interesting gameplay, but like the way I see it is like, shouldn't the gameplay like enforce interesting roleplay, right? So it's like your character has stats, he can have he can have intrigue stat, and that means that he's super good at like scheming and murdering people and stuff like that. But like the intrigue stat doesn't really matter for your scheming ability and murdering people and stuff. So like nothing really matters. And so like none of the mechanics like enforce the roleplay, if that makes sense. It's like the mechanics are bad, and then the developers tell you to roleplay to make up for it. And it's like, well, I would rather have good mechanics that help me roleplay in a way, right? Yeah. Maybe that makes sense. I don't know, but like, yeah, it's kind of hard to explain what I mean, because I'm not sure what I mean, but like, yeah.
Yeah, and going back quickly to the like XCOM thing, and Fire Emblem and stuff. I don't know. I don't think that's classed as story either, but because it's a bit different. Because that's sort of emotional attachment, right? in a like hopefully healthy way, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like you get physically sad because you had this plan about this character or whatever, and then you can't because they died, right? I think that's why those games especially people are very like what do you say, like the people that play those games a lot, they are very what's the word, they tell you no, you should play Iron Man, right? Because that's like an important part, or like the Darkest Dungeon as well, right? No, you should play with permadeath because like it's not interesting without it, because the part of the interesting whatever is that you have this attachment, and you're actually physically scared that your characters are gonna die, right? Not scared, or what's the emotion?
Worried
or whatever, right? You're stressed about it, I guess, right? So you're playing carefully.
Yeah, like it ties into your gameplay. It's like, oh yeah, I don't want to take a risk with this character because he can die.
Yeah.
Or
but again,
like
it's not like it's not telling a story necessarily, but it's still interesting. There is like it's sort of, I guess we're discussing now we're into the territory of things that are like more on the emotional side and not on the mechanical side, right? And I think maybe we should do like an episode on that somehow. I don't know how long we could talk about it, but like there's needs to be like a distinction between like an author having a message and like because that's like a story game, right? Versus a game where like it's just about your emotions, right? Well, I don't know if that's because like you could argue something like Hollow Knight Silksong, right? It plays into stress or whatever, right? Or like a run-based game, right? Because it's like, oh my god, if I die, I have to do all this over again. So maybe that's just an part of games, and it's just underutilized.
Yeah, probably.
I think that's also why people, even though they're terrible, in my opinion, literally terrible, I think it's the worst genre ever created. But I think that's part of why people enjoy them, which is battle royale games.
Yeah.
Right. They
I
are
will
very
also add,
much like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will also add extraction shooters to this.
Yeah, that's what I meant actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I didn't mean battle royale. Sorry. I mean, it's to me that's the same genre. It's just.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're
it isn't. But the like. To me, it was like they made battle
they like
royales, and then
they evoke.
it just turned into that, right? They just added PvE elements to the battle royale, and that became that was the. I think normal battle royale is less bad actually than extraction shooter.
I'm not so sure.
I mean,
maybe we'll have to do an episode on battle royales, because I feel like I could have a very long discussion about that.
But you see what I'm saying here, right? That those, like the reason those are popular, I think is, but that's interesting actually. So then it's not good in that case, right? Because what's happening there is like you're getting a bigger emotional response, but you're wasting more time, right? Because it's like interesting that you don't know what's gonna happen. It's sort of abusing your it's the Skinner box, right? Thing where it's like, oh my god, is it gonna be anything? Oh, is there a person here or whatever? Versus something like Call of Duty, and you're just okay, there is obviously gonna be someone around this corner because the map is like 5 feet wide, right? So it's not always good, obviously, is what we're really realizing, I guess. But it can be done well, and I think parts of the extraction shooters are interesting, but I feel like the ones that are available today, at least, are very, very bad.
Yeah,
like really, really bad. They're almost MMO bad, actually.
Yeah.
That's what I actually prefer. Like, I wouldn't say they're as bad as MMOs, but I prefer MMOs over them. I would rather play an MMO than an extraction shooter, actually. Because
I think it depends on the MMO, but yeah, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. And we're mean to some genres sometimes.
Yeah, we're very mean, as usual. Yeah.
Artsy game, let's go.
Yes. So, do I have the honor of?
Yeah, you're the more experienced artsy game guy. I'm not the biggest fan.
Well, I'm not a very experienced artsy game guy actually, but I have played a few, like.
Clarify, what's an artsy game?
Walking sims, for example.
Yeah.
Like I think what's it called? The Beginner's Guide by Davey Redden. It's he was one of the guys who worked on Stanley Parable. Like that game is pretty good actually. Like it's a very But I think it does the thing we've discussed well, where it's like it uses the gameplay to like convey its message more. I think there's like, I played it a very long time ago, so maybe I'm like misremembering things here. But like, let's see if I remember correctly here. So there's like, I think there's like a section of the game where like it's like about the monotony of everyday life, right? And you're like just repeatedly doing the same stuff over and over again, and it's like boring, but like it's part of the gameplay, so it becomes sort of interesting. Like he does some interesting stuff with that sort of thing. So I maybe I'll have to replay it because it was a very long time ago I played it, and I don't remember a lot of it. But I remember enjoying it, even though I'm usually not an artsy game guy. But then there's like, I played a few others like Firewatch. I didn't enjoy too much. It was like, yeah. I mean, no strong feelings.
Or even more like, again, we're so like this is totally outside our. But what are the? There is this developer that is sort of interesting. So I don't remember. I remember the first game because it's called Gris, which is
pig in Swedish,
which is really funny. But that developer that like it's sort of just art and emotions sort of. They had something with like a wolf or something dying or something.
I don't
remember. But
this is not my territory.
Like, it's like it's not even like any narrative in any sense. You're just walking through art basically, like it's an art gallery.
I actually have a good example. What's it called? Inside, I think it's by the guys who made Limbo. That one is pretty good actually. Yeah. So it's basically like you're just like walking, and there are some sections. It's like, oh, you're being hunted, so you need to be a bit fast and whatever. And there's like a few like puzzly elements, but then like most of the time it's like just taking in the view or whatever. But that game actually does it very well, and it has sort of like a freaky, interesting ending. So, but like there's no maybe no narrative is the wrong
like
word, but like
narrative or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's like no words, no narrator, nothing like that. It's like everything is being told through the environment.
I think that's cool. I think that's fine.
I actually haven't played Limbo,
game, but Limbo is probably kind of similar, right?
Yeah.
And
it was pretty good.
It sort of works, right? Because it's like it's just show. So if we take games as a like games are very wide, right? So we'll have the games that are. I mean, we like most kinds of games, but like so if we usually talk about very gameplay heavy games. And they are closer to music, right? So gameplay heavy games are sort of music. It's like playing or listening to music, because it's sort of this abstract thing you feel, right? Where it's like interesting how the things interact, right? It's very similar to music. Then today, the one we're talking about, that's sort of books or movies, right? Where we're again not the bad ones. Like we're talking about like Lucas Pope games, for example, where Papers, Please, where it's like no, the author or in this game designer had an idea about some like he wants you to live the experience of this guy sitting in this booth letting people in, right? That's the point. That's very, very like story. That's similar to books. And what we're talking about now, which we are less experienced with, is what we called artsy games, right? Which is games that they are very similar to literal art, right? Where it's like what you see in the painting is what you should interpret, right? Yeah. And then, but the difference here is that these games, you're actually like it's a big painting because you can like
very big painting
and touch. Maybe you can maybe you can interact with some things, right? But it evokes the same kind of feelings, right? It's the same thing as a painting. It's just more, So it's a very different experience, right? Yeah, but it's still valid. It's just for me. I'm not as experienced. Like I haven't played that many games like that, right? I'm more in the other halves, right, or the other two halves, and that you could probably split it more. But this is just a generalization, right? But I think it helps to like clarify what we're talking about to split them up like that. Yeah. But so if you look at it through, sorry, go ahead. You first.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, if you look through that lens, right, it makes it more clear that like what we see as the intent in these games and why they're good or bad, right? Because if you look at it this way, then you see that like why, for example, Uncharted doesn't work, right? I mean, you could argue that there's music with lyrics, right? But that's sort of like blending them, right? And you can do that. So it's not like that, but it's like where you can split it up and remove one part and it's bad. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should play more artsy games. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. Because
I mean, they're
played a
usually
few.
short, so
Yeah, true. Well, there is Journey, which I'm not a fan of.
yeah.
Maybe we should save that rant for another day.
No, you can go.
Okay, yeah. So, well, I'll have to spoil Journey then, but maybe that's fine because it's a bad game.
Yeah, we're in the end now. You're not into spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. Spoiler warning. So, the thing about Journey is that it's like a walking sim, right? You're walking through this very beautiful environment or whatever, and then the game has this like secret element of it where it's secretly multiplayer. So like somewhere along the way you will meet another player and you will start helping each other to progress in the world and whatever. The problem with Journey, in my opinion, is that it suffers from it's not like when it works, but when it doesn't, kind of, is what I'm trying to get at here. So, like, when I played that game, I was like, because I'm a gameplay guy at heart, right? I don't play very many artsy story games, right? So I was like basically speedrunning the game. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like get to the end as fast as possible, because that's always how I play the games, right? Or always how I try to play games, at least. I started meeting people along the way who like couldn't keep up with me, and so I like just ran past everything. And maybe you could say, oh, that's my fault for not engaging with the game or whatever, but like it didn't really work for me at all, because it's like, oh yeah, this is this beautiful game about like people helping each other to reach their goals or whatever, I don't know, and then like you don't really need to help each other. I can just like run past everyone and it doesn't matter. So like that game didn't really work at all for me. I think it's very overrated because it's very popular for some reason. Yeah,
I didn't.
Spoiler over.
So I don't know. Yeah. There is one more thing I want to bring up before
go ahead.
End, though, which is one thing that we haven't talked about, which is what I'm gonna call telltale likes, because I don't have any better name, or like visual novels. I mean, that's not quotes, that's what they're called, right?
Yeah.
And I think people do kind of recognize this, at least for visual novels, that they aren't games, right? That's my opinion. They're just not games, right? In the traditional sense, because I mean, some of them have gameplay or whatever, but I usually think that they're worse off because of it, right? Like you do the little puzzle or do the it's just worse.
Yeah, like what's it called? Like To the Moon, I think. It has like, do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that game?
The RPG Maker game, right?
Yeah, I didn't like it. It's like it's a very like sad, depressing story, and then like between the sad, depressing stories, you have to like do like literal puzzles, I think, if I remember correctly, and like it has nothing to do with the story, whatever. It's just like, oh yeah, we need some gameplay. Let's throw that in there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But like, I guess my point is that a like a good visual novel, for example, that's just a book with some visuals and some audio, right? So it's just an enhanced book or whatever. I mean, you could argue it's enhanced if you want, right? But if they did a good job, it's gonna be enhanced by the audio and the visuals, right? And so that's totally like reasonable, right? It's just a book, but it's not a game, really, right? So at least not to me. I don't know. Maybe someone wants to argue that it's a game. I don't know. I think it does the genre disservice, right? Because it's like, then you need to start thinking about other things that it's not really relevant for them, right? Because so I guess the point is those would translate. A good visual novel would then translate reasonably well to book form, and okay to movie form, but not as well as itself, right? That would be the point, right? It would get something out of being, with images and sound, but it could translate fine, whereas games can't, right? That's sort of my point, right? That's the difference.
Yeah. I mean, there are visual novels that do have gameplay. So I'm thinking of
They're
like
usually
Bad End
worse,
Theater. Yeah, but like
Is
Bad
that a
End
visual
Theater.
novel? I don't know if I would call that a visual
Well,
novel.
maybe
I
like
mean,
it's.
See, this is the. I don't know.
Okay.
To me, it's like okay, if it's a book, right, or like Telltale game, right?
Mhm.
It's like, sure, you click on some things, but they're just pointless in
Yeah.
Telltale games, right?
Mhm.
Maybe you have dialogue choices, but again, I would argue most games like that are just worse off because of it. So it's just like, to me, visual novels and good visual novels and good Telltale games, they are just trying to tell a story in another format. Sort of, they are very similar to movies, right? Where movies are a different way to tell a story, right?
Mhm.
Compared to a book, but it's
Yeah.
just a way to tell a story. And so a visual novel or a Telltale style game, it's just that. It's just you're telling a story, but you're using computer generated images instead, right?
Mhm.
And that's how you do that well, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So to me, that's not a visual novel or a Telltale game.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
falls in another category.
Mhm.
I don't know what category though.
Visual novel game. No, I don't know. Yeah.
Because that's
like
not really
yeah.
a story game either, I would argue. That's more of a...
Well, it is if you look at it at like from the game perspective, right? It is a game with a story, or like gameplay integrated into the story, or whatever you want to call it.
Maybe.
I think so. At least.
I don't know what I think of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I don't know if
Yes.
I would say the story is interesting.
What do you mean?
In that game, the story. I don't know if I
Well,
would say
no,
the
but
story.
like I'm thinking of like you know, in the sense of Obra Dinn, where like the story is the gameplay, right? I think that's sort of the way Bad End Theater
exactly.
works as
So
well.
it's not so it's not a narrated like
No,
story.
it's not. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my point. So it doesn't fall in the category visual novel.
Mm-hmm.
It's my point.
Okay, yeah. If
It
that's
falls
how
in the detective game genre or whatever. I put it in, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Leave in the comments what you think. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is, people talk about this stuff not enough, right? So it's hard to like. A lot of the time, I feel like there is, like, in some cases with like action games, there's actually a lot of smart people saying smart stuff, right? But with some of the other stuff, it's way harder to find.
Yeah, I think it's a case of like, you know, people who play a lot of gameplay focused games, they kind of dismiss story games completely, which is understandable, but a bit of a mistake in my opinion, because there are good story games. But obviously it's a very different
the story people should care about, but maybe they do and they just don't talk about it.
Well, maybe the story people like.
Well, Lucas Pope,
or actually,
maybe
true,
Lucas Pope could make an article or something about.
True.
No, look.
Yeah.
I make story games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's all for from us for today. Perhaps long episode today. Hopefully we have said something interesting today. And as always, if you agree or disagree, leave a comment. Tell us what you think. Leave a like or a dislike, and of course subscribe. That's mandatory.
We have this new series where we look at games and we're playing around with it. It's gonna change over time.
Yeah.
Please tell us what you think about it.
Yeah, leave feedback.
We need a lot of feedback on that one because we're not sure what we want to do with it. So we're gonna try some different things. But basically the idea is that we want it to be similar to this, but like more game focused, right? So we'll see how it goes.
Yes.
So even if you don't like it, please tell us that so we know how to change it, I guess. Or like, should it be longer? Should it be shorter or whatever, right?
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.